welcome to the UNTIED Podcast, where we unravel the knots of life with faith, wisdom, and encouragement, because together we're here to untie from tradition and embrace truth through powerful Bible teaching. My name is Garrett Bernethy. I'm one of the hosts of this show, and today I'm here with Corey Sawyers, and unfortunately, we do not have Tyler with us. Tyler is of course, out for the holidays. He is up in Colorado with some family and is not feeling too well this morning. And so we certainly hope that he will get to feeling better soon. We will miss him. We know that you will miss him. But Corey and I are here to end this season off. Season finale of season 1. This is episode 14, and our theme today is building credibility. So I'm excited about this conversation. It seems a little bit surreal that we have gone through an entire season and now we're ending season 1. But man, this has been a fun ride. It's been a great journey. We hope that this has been something that has helped you, blessed you in your life as you've been traveling around in your car, whatever it is, watching us on YouTube or Excel TV. We're just thankful that you've joined us for season 1 and that you've been so patient with us. See, the episode 1 that we recorded was not the best in the world. We had all kinds of technical issues and things, but we have overcome all of those, and so we thank you for your patience, and we're still learning this thing. So just thank you for sticking with us today. But man, Corey, it's good to be with you, my friend. This is the day after Christmas when we are recording this, the morning after Christmas, rather, and so Christmases are still being celebrated. But Corey, man, what's been cooking with you? How's things been going? How was Christmas? What all is going on, man?
Christmas was great. I hope you had a Merry Christmas too. But
I did.
We had we don't have white Christmases in Tennessee. We usually have wet Christmases in Tennessee, and so we've carried on that tradition. But it's been good now that we have 2 of our sons married. Gordon's in-laws are here local, so it's a lot easier to share them. I'm still adjusting to this joint custody kind of thing, though. I hadn't been used to that. So,
yeah.
But Garrett, obviously Bailey's parents live in Denver, and she's got family in Texas, and so they alternate. Last year we got Bailey for Thanksgiving, and we lost Garrett at Christmas. And this year we lost Bailey and Garrett at Thanksgiving, but we had them here for Christmas, so that was great to have all of them together. And you know, I understand, of course, but it is nice when just my whole family's there together to hug. Yeah. And I don't know if y'all have ever practiced group hugs in your family, but if you can get into about everybody serious enough to do it, we did it accidentally one time, and then like halfway through, it was like, that was really special. And so now it's something that I often do. I say, let's do a group hug, and it's our group is getting bigger now, of course, but that's been good. But it's been a good weekend. It's been strange. You know, I'm past 50 now, so things are starting the downhill descend.
Things are getting dimmer.
Yeah. So anyway, all those Ecclesiastes moments of, you know, the keepers of the house getting weak and all of those kinds of things, the grinders ceasing. But it was interesting because I'm actually wearing one of my Christmas presents. I got some new headphones, some Beats, so I'm feeling pretty cool. And then I open up another present, and I got my very first pair of slippers. And I said, I'm in an interesting age in life in which I get old man slippers and Beats in the same Christmas, you know. So, like, I'm covering the gamut from really cool to really old, and, you know. Once you get slippers, I'm thinking the next step is like a walker, and
you get a maroon robe. That's what you get.
A maroon robe, yeah. Maroon plaid robe.
Are your slippers? Are they leather, or are they the soft ones?
Well, they actually look like they're buckskin, kinda.
Ooh.
And they've got memory foam on the inside and this little fuzzy thing. I don't know. It was I tried to make them sound more manly. I said, "Is this genuine buckskin?" And you know, but anyway,
Well,
weird time in life.
weird time in life, but they're comfortable, aren't they?
They are comfortable. Yeah.
There you go. That's all that matters. The older you get, it's all about, I really don't care how I look anymore as long as I'm comfortable.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of looking forward to that point where I can go outside in like shorts and my plaid maroon robe and socks with sandals and what are you kids doing on my yard? You know, that kind of thing.
Get out of here.
And,
that's funny.
you know, I'm spending my days, with a little bitty miniature rake, taking care of the mulch around my petunias and that kind of thing. So
going out and picking the weeds and Yep. Those will be good days to come. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm at the stage in life where it's a good Saturday if I pick all the grass out of my flower bed. Never thought.
Very accomplished.
Never saw that coming,
Yeah.
Or like if I wash both of our vehicles, like I can't get out of bed the next morning. I'm so sore. And it's like,
yeah.
I used to wash my truck in like 25 minutes before I'd go on a date. And now it's an all day chore. And I'm wore out when I get done.
Wore out. I need a nap.
I need a nap.
I need a
wash
long
my
nap.
truck. What did you do? Did you like cure cancer, move a mountain, save mankind? Well, wash the truck.
I put an extra layer of wax on that bad boy and it knocked me out.
Yeah. Detailed the console. I'm spent. So
you
anyway.
got to be careful.
But we had good food. Melody made sausage balls. I was going to smoke them, but I didn't have time. But Melody made sausage balls and excellent. Her sausage balls were so good. One of my daughter-in-laws, you talk about marrying well. I may have talked about this before. I don't remember. I may have at Thanksgiving time. But when you have one daughter that makes country ham and biscuit balls.
Yeah, you did tell. Yeah.
Another daughter-in-law making Oreo balls. And your wife making sausage balls, man, I don't need a present. Just let me.
That's like, if I remember right, that's like 1, 3, and 6 on your list of the greatest fears ever.
I'd have to look at the list officially. Number 1 is ball bearings because ball bearings allows for production of the other things.
Yes.
But 2, 3, and 4, I think are country ham ball, biscuits, balls, and sausage balls and Oreo balls. But anyway.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I need to.
It's a wonderful life. I've got my Bailey Brothers building and loan shirt on. It's a wonderful life.
Oh man. Well, that's very cool. We had sausage balls. I think my uncle made the sausage balls, and my uncle and aunt, and they were super good. And my wife makes this. There's actually a few ladies here at Hydro that make it. It's a cranberry dip. It's got cranberry and jalapeno in it, and cilantro, and just several things in there, and put a little cream cheese and a cracker on it. And man, it's so good. So my wife made that, and of course I made some jalapeno poppers. I've just gotten where I don't like to have a holiday without poppers included. Mm-hmm. They're so good. I just love jalapeno poppers. And so I made some of those. And then we had pork tenderloin, and we had pulled pork, and we had just all kinds of baked beans and ham. I mean, there was all kinds of stuff it was just a smorgasbord of food that we had yesterday. There wasn't any theme to the food. It was just, it started out, my grandpa was like, hey, we're just going to have everybody bring some finger foods, something like that. And next thing I know, he had like 12 of us bringing ribs and everything else. And so we got things figured out, or at least a couple, my uncle, he got some things figured out. And so we had plenty of food, lots of different pies, pecan pie and apple pie. And then for my Christmas at my wife's parents, my in-laws, with that side of the family, we had, it was easy. We made tacos, and it was brisket tacos, and then just regular tacos or nachos, whatever. You just kind of had this nacho taco bar deal. and it was really good. So we had a couple of good days. We got one small Christmas left. We'll do at some point, but got some
we
cool
get done
things.
here. We get done here. I'm going with all of our families going over to Melody's parents, and we'll eat brunch, and she'll have country ham and bacon and sausage and eggs and hash brown casserole and red eye gravy. Do y'all do red eye gravy in Oklahoma?
If they, I don't think I've had it, but they may.
You know what red eye gravy is?
I don't know what it is.
It's a gravy that you make with the country ham drippings and black coffee. So you don't make a roux. You just take the black coffee and you pour it into, and if it's actually older and stronger, it's better. But then take a whisk and get all that good giblets off the bottom of the pan, and boy, you put that on a biscuit, and you'll slap your mama.
I have heard of that, but I didn't know what it was. And if I've had it, I didn't know, but
it's good.
Yeah. It's funny how different parts of the country have their own different gravy. I worked with a guy from Louisiana, South Louisiana, and we went, the first day he was on our crew, we went to a restaurant, and we'd been working a bunch, and I got a chicken fried steak. And here we like white gravy. Now we like brown gravy too, but white gravy is typically what we have on there. And he goes, "What's that on that chicken fry on that steak?" And I said, "That's gravy." He goes, "That ain't gravy." He said gravy is a different color than that. And I was like, no, this is gravy. So it was funny. He said, "No, this is how you make gravy." Of course, those Cajuns, man, they've got some great recipes, and he made a lot of cool stuff for us when we were all at the same place. But yeah, and then barbecue, it's so different everywhere else too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we're actually, Melody and I, in April of 2025, we're getting to go down to one of the little suburbs of New Orleans and do a marriage seminar on the weekend. Then I'm preaching a gospel meeting that week, and we are anxiously anticipating the fellowship and the spiritual, but also the physical diet that's going to go on.
Yeah.
So anyway, we had, whenever Tyler was interning with us many years ago, when I was preaching up in Paris, Tennessee, and he lived with us, and one night we made breakfast for supper, and the boys have been after me to do it. We usually just do it on special occasions, but I made chocolate gravy. And Tyler's looking at me like I'd lost my mind, and until he tried some chocolate gravy on a biscuit, and he called his mama to tell him about the chocolate gravy and the red eye gravy. I made that night too. And she said, "Oh yeah," she said, "I grew up eating chocolate gravy in Oklahoma, where she was from. I don't know if you've ever had it or not, but
yeah."
And the look on Tyler's face, like you had punched him in the nose, and he's like, "You knew about this and you never told me about chocolate gravy?" He was shocked. So anyway,
that's funny.
But man, in the South, we know how to eat for sure.
Man, I'll tell you what. And so, you're going to get a lot of good seafood down there.
I know.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I love seafood.
I feel kind of like in that moment between when Moses was told by God to lead my people to the promised land until they actually got to the promised land. That's where I'm at right now. I know I'm going to the promised land of Cajun cooking, but I'm not there yet. So it's,
Right now, you're just eating that bread.
Eager anticipation. I'm eating the manna, saying, "What is this?" Quail every now and again.
Great things in the horizon.
Yeah. So.
Well,
anyway.
my daughter-in-law is born and raised in South Carolina, and they're about 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours from the ocean. But as you can imagine, being over there, there's a lot of good seafood. So anytime that we go close to a beach anywhere with them, I look at Claire and I say, "What do I need to get? What do I need to eat?" because you know this, and so everything that she chooses, I just fall in love with. It's just so good. Of course, I've always loved lobster and crab legs and kind of the typical thing that, we you can get pretty much anywhere. But whenever it comes to I really like sushi. I know not everybody likes that. I don't like all sushi, but anytime we do that, I'm like, all right, Claire, what do we need to get? I'm always just, you sit by me. That's what you're saying. So I'm always asking her, and she knows the good stuff to get. So we've got the same thing going on, because my wife does not like seafood. She does not like fish. She doesn't like any of that. And
my wife eats catfish, but that's the only really kind of.
Yeah,
occasionally she'll eat crappie.
Crappie's good.
Melody's picky though, because she wants it filleted. And first time I made crappie for her, she's like, "But you didn't fillet it." And I said, "You don't have to fillet crappie. You run your finger down it and pull all the meat off, flip it over, and do the same thing, and you're done." But
yeah,
she's a stickler about that. So
yeah, crappie, walleye is good. I mean, y'all have walleye over there, Tennessee?
No, not really.
Man, that's a good eating fish right there.
We've got crappie and catfish are our two main things that we will eat. You can get the red ears and some. I mean, I guess different people eat different things. There's people I know that eat carp. I wouldn't eat a carp if I had to, with all the bones that they got in them. But catfish and crappie are the two. Yeah. I mean, we'll fish for brim. It just takes a mini brim to, make a mess. Right. So, but
well, it's crazy. Yeah. We're right around the corner from, not too far off. We got a couple months, but crappie season is really fixing to hit. And man, I love to go crappie fishing. So fixing to make that big transition from hunting to fishing.
Yep.
And so you get excited about going out there and going fishing. And of course, I love to bass fish. That's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
But
and we got a lot of bass, mostly largemouth, but I'm not as big a fan of bass eating wise. I love to fish for bass, but
right. Yeah, you guys have a lot of good lakes over there. Tennessee, Alabama, Kentucky. I mean, there's some really good lakes that get hit a lot, especially like in the bass tours and Smith Lake and all those. So there's a lot of really
Thank you, TVA.
Good. Yeah. We've
only naturally occurring lake is Reelfoot Lake, caused by an earthquake, and all the rest of them basically have been TVA have put them in. So
that's Oklahoma. We have 0 natural lakes here. They're all man-made. Every single one, which is pretty crazy because we've, we've had several that they just, dam up and then create it that way. So they don't necessarily dig it out, but I'm sure they do a lot of work. But there's a lot of really, really pretty lakes in Oklahoma that we really enjoy going to. Grand Lake is an awesome one. Of course, a lot of good bass fishing up there. And we used to go down to a lake called McGee Creek. And we would, me and my uncle and my aunt, and mainly in the early morning, me and my uncle would go. My aunt would come some because me and Greg would get up at the crack of dawn. And down there, there's so many trees, probably like around where you are, and that water's glass. Well, they had black bass down there, and we go way up in there, and those black bass would school. So it didn't matter what you had. You needed a lure that swam fast, whatever that was. And we would sit there with the motor on, and they'd start schooling. We'd haul over there and throw it in there, and boom, and hit them. And we caught a bunch of them. We came back and they were pretty good eating. But yeah, fishing's a blast. I love it. I love it.
I'm gonna miss her.
Thank you, Brad Paisley. Oh, before we both get in trouble over that comment. I think man, I tell you what, this has been an awesome season. And today will be, of season 1, our finally anchor thought. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that so that we can begin progressing to our overall theme for our show today, which is, I'm looking at my show notes here, which is going to be building credibility. But before that, let's hit our daily anchor today. And there's several things I've really been trying to figure out what to talk about, what our anchor should be for a season-ending episode like this. And in thinking about it, the holiday season always brings about a lot of different feelings for a lot of different people. It's feelings that they have throughout the year, but it seems sometimes the holidays can bring those feelings out even more, rather. With all the joy that you experience with family, or you may have this may be a tough time for you because you have experienced loss. Maybe there's been some heartache or turmoil in your family. Everybody's situation is different, and we want you to know that we definitely sympathize and are with you in whatever time you are in your life, and hopefully we'll be able to share throughout this episode that no matter what time of life you're in, what memories you have, good or bad, or where you are during this holiday season, even though Christmas is now officially past, it technically is the holiday season, I guess, until New Year's hits, but God is the center of all things and needs to be the center of our mind. I actually heard this quote, and I looked it up and was able to find this quote, and I thought it was really good as we think about, our life in general. And it is a quote that I looked up. It's actually by a guy, and I don't know that this is original with him, but this is who it was accredited to. And I hope I say this right. His name is Lao Tzu. And here's what he said. He says, if you are depressed, you are living in the past. If you are anxious, you are living in the future. If you are at peace, you're living in the present. I thought that was a really good quote for a couple of reasons. And first of all, I want to go ahead and try to connect that here. And I want to connect it over to something that Jesus said in Matthew chapter 6. In Matthew chapter 6, verses 24, I'm showing it to you on the screen here, 25 through 34, Jesus begins to talk about not necessarily depression or being at peace, but he definitely talks about anxiety. However, there is we're going to call it a quote. There's a verse in here that I have for a long time now taken to heart. Every one of us has something. We all have some type of baggage. We all have something going on in our life. Life is what it is, and you have a lot of things going on. You've got stuff you've got to do. Some things can stress you out, no matter what it is, whether it's money, family, holidays. I mean, it can be anything. But here is what Jesus said in Matthew 6. I want to read verse 33 and 34. And I hope that this stays with everybody who listens throughout the entirety of the Untied Podcast, whether we go 2 seasons and that's it, or 222 seasons. But here is what Jesus said, and I hope that this will stick with you. He said in verse 33, "But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. So do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will take care of itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." Now, while this definitely directly hits, I think, at the very end of that quote that I just gave you, this is something that every one of us needs to live by, because we really can get caught up in our past. We can get caught up in the bad decisions. We can get caught up in the regrets. We can get caught up in the things that we're, have just struggled with over and over throughout our life. And we can carry that. Dan Winkler actually presents this in a great way in his book, Forgiving, Forgiven, and Free, I believe is the name of it. I may have got that backwards, but I think that's the order of the name. It's a great little book. And he talks about, for a person who needs to forgive themselves, as he talks about forgiveness, you need to take your bag off. And he describes a backpack, and you would fill it full of stones. And every stone that you put in represents something that you're holding against yourself. And eventually that bag gets so heavy that it is unbearably, unbelievably hard to carry. Some of us are carrying around a number of things from our past, myself included. I'm sure Corey's got things. We all have things in our life that we carry around. But when we look at the words of Jesus, his words direct us to the moment. There is nothing that we can change about our past. There are a lot of things that have happened in our past that we never had any control over. But somehow we sometimes feel like we should have, or wish that we could have, or wish we could have done something different. And you're probably thinking as you're listening to this about some instance in your past, in your life that you have lived, that this is, may directly affect. But I'll tell you this, Charles Hodge, which is one of my favorite authors, he wrote in his book, My Daily Walk with God, he said in a quote in his introduction, he said, "Today is all I need. Today is all I can handle. Today is all that I have." That is where our mind ought to be, because the past is something I can never change, but it's something that I have to deal with. It's something that I have to learn from. But what about the future? Well, Jesus says, don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow will take care of itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Going back to this quote, those who are very anxious are people who are living in the future. I am somebody who get caught up in that with planning, whether it's for the work of Excel Still More, whether it's for just the work of ministry. Maybe it's about my sons and, thinking about their lives and all. There are so many things, retirement and all that stuff. You can get so caught up in that you can really become anxious about your life and all that's going on with it. But anxiety is something that some people have a lot of struggle with, and there's a lot of reasons for that. So please don't think that I am saying that I'm curing all things here. But as a person who definitely has this problem from time to time, we've got to remember that today is what we have. Today is what we need to worry about. There's nothing wrong with planning, but today is where I need to be. Because if we have a kingdom focus, if we have the drive to be as righteous as we can because we're walking in the light, as John would write in 1 John 7, that is what brings true peace to us. I can't let my past or whatever has gone on there, I can't let that rule over my day. And I can't let the things that have not happened yet ruin my day, because today is all that I've got. And if I let my past run my day and my future ruin my day, then how does that affect you today? Well, it will affect you in your attitude. It will affect you in your conversations that you have with your wife, that you have with your children. It will cause you to lose time. And that is a tragedy. And I, like so many other people, have had those moments where I have lost time because I'm living in the past or I'm living in the future. And that is not something that we need to get caught up into. So with the whole untied theme, here's what I would challenge you to do for today as in our daily anchor, and of course, as we go throughout our week, and even until season 2 begins, the challenge would be this: untie from your past. Don't worry about the future, but tie yourself to the moment, because the moment that we have right now truly is what matters, because you'll never be able to replace the moment you have with your family, with the work you're doing with the kingdom. You'll lose it. And don't do that. And so let's untie from those things. And hopefully that's an anchoring thought that will bless you, or at least cause you to think about a few things. I love those 2 verses, Corey, that Jesus said, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. All these things will be added to you. So do not worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. I thought that might be fitting for today, as it seems the holiday season sometimes brings about those worries and anxieties and sorrows and all those, because we get caught up in things. So I thought that hopefully that is helpful to you guys who are listening today. But I love those verses, Corey.
And the key to it is that, the opposite of the worry is faith. And so, God expects us to do what we can do, but then once we've done what we can done about a situation, then turn it over to God and, trust that he's going to take care of us. My papa used to always say there's no sense in worrying about anything, because if you can do something about it, do it. And if you can't, then there's no sense in worrying about it. And that was a kind of a simplistic way of looking at it, but it's the truth that, we allow the things that we can't control to control us. And when we do, then we end up not being able to be effective for a variety of reasons, but we're not being able to be effective in what we can control. So,
yeah. And I love that, how that ties in here. Simplicity is best.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And probably the most simple of things. I don't know. I may put this in the show notes for anybody who. Corey, have you read My Daily Walk with God by Charles Hodge?
It's been a long time ago, but I have.
Yeah. I would highly encourage anybody and everybody to read that book, and I'll put it in the show notes. I'll put a link in there. Charles Hodge is I think, a very simple writer, and those simple thoughts are something that really can have a lot of wisdom in there. And I think that's what this thought that Jesus gave really is very simple. There's not a whole lot of complicated thought to it. And that's really where we need to be. And that, I think that is a good transition to our our segment 3 here, as we look at our main theme of building credibility. And I've got it in parentheses here. What is the secret to transformation? And we'll kind of explain how that works in there. But building credibility, what is the backdrop, or the definition, or the meaning of building credibility? I mean, I guess there's so many things that you could talk about, but
yeah, and I think about it from the perspective of ministry, and I don't mean just the preachers, but like in how we're able, all of us are supposed to have a ministry, as we've talked about throughout the season, but how that we can minister to others, and the idea of just being genuine, I think is really what we're talking about here. And that's so important to understand, that if we're not genuine, if we don't have that credibility, that we're not going to be able to really communicate with people. They're not going to listen to us. And at the same time, to realize there's only so much we can do about it, because there's some people that they're not going to believe you no matter what you do, no matter how real you are. But I have found that the people that usually are the least genuine are the people that assume that other people aren't being genuine. So it's one of those kind of situations. But, the idea of, making sure that we're just genuine in what we're saying and what we're doing, and the emotions that we show, and those types of things, of being all things to all men, but not violating truth, so that we can make genuine connections and build genuine relationships with people.
Yeah. Yeah. There's such a, I've heard Kirk Brothers about evangelism. I may have said this before, but he said, here are the 3 steps to evangelism: relationships, relationships, relationships. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, building those relationships. But nobody wants a fake relationship.
No.
And that includes God. God does not want a religious version of you.
Mm-hmm.
That means that whenever we walk into our church buildings for worship, I don't become somebody else. I'm just who I am. And
That's right.
I know that we have talked about that before. Just being you. We've talked about that with like our episode that we did about men, and one about being women, and we've talked about preachers, of course, and we've had a variety of discussion on that. But just the biggest deal about being yourself with people, being yourself with God. People know when you're not being you. Mm-hmm. And the only people who are fooled by that are the person who's trying to be someone else.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's always not for nefarious reasons or intentions. Sometimes I think we put on airs to some degree because that's the way at least we think we're being more respectful or holy or
sure.
Something of that nature. So you've got like where I'm at in the middle of rural West Tennessee, and there's, as far as I know, there's no real Shakespearean actors around here anywhere. But yet, when we pray, we're speaking 1492 English for some reason. And I think that for some people, it's they're trying to be respectful and whatnot. But God knows who I am, and we joke about how we're real people, but as preachers, but all of this stuff that y'all see us do or talk about is like, it's genuine. I know Garrett well enough to tell you that Garrett is genuinely just a country boy, and he likes to hunt and he likes to fish, and he loves his wife and he loves his family, and all of those kinds of things. If you know me, you know that I'm kind of kooky and my brain works weird, and I think of songs and random Andy Griffith episode. I mean, it's just who I am. And, but God knows that. So let's just be who we are is what I love. The fact that, Moses is described as one who talked with God as a friend to a friend.
Yeah.
And I get the fact, the argument that people will use about, like, if you were going to see the president or that kind, well, I don't have a relationship with the president. That's the difference. God, while he's God, and there needs to be fear and respect, God wants he wants a father-son relationship. And there's a reason why the Sermon on the Mount that you were just, teaching us from, there's a reason why that Jesus uses our Father in heaven or something like that 17 times in that sermon, because he's trying to reframe their view of their relationship with the Lord, and we need to sometimes as well.
Right. Yeah. That some people think that, of course, if we're talking about building credibility, we've got to build the vertical credibility at some point. I think that has to be that relationship, as we've said, needs to be the first relationship established. But there are some people out there who really struggle. They struggle with their prayer life, number one, for a number of different reasons. And in some cases, we kind of have this group that struggles to pray in general. And then we may have this group that struggles to pray, in an authentic way. But then you have even people who think that they're praying too much. And that's an interesting thing if you've ever had a conversation with somebody who has said that, because they feel as if they are bothering him,
Mm-hmm.
which is an interesting thought. Number one, if they feel that way, man, I commend you on how much you're praying. That is awesome. And I've reminded people that you're not bothering him.
Mm-hmm.
When Paul said pray without ceasing, that's what he meant.
Mm-hmm.
It means that you go to him all the time. When Peter said, cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you, that's what he meant. So I love that you brought up about Moses as he talked to God as a friend to a friend. And because I think that means that you can really demonstrate your emotion to him.
Mm-hmm.
When you're very emotional, the these and the thous are gone. Because I'm not thinking about how I'm talking to him. I'm thinking about what I want to say to him. And praise God for Romans chapter 8 that tells us that even when we are at our lowest, our maddest, our saddest, our happiest, our joyous, our whatever, that I have not a clue how to explain or put into words how I feel, that he does it for me. Man, what a great God we serve that has taken literally care of everything.
Yep.
So to build credibility, I too, I don't have a problem with people who are, if they like to use those words. Hey, I mean, I don't have, that doesn't bother me. I don't have an issue with that. But if you're doing that because you think that you need to be the religious version of yourself, I just don't think that you can get around the fact that you're not being you.
Right. Yeah, and if you think about like our relationships that we have, in our like look at your text messages.
Yeah.
There are people that I text once every 4 months about stuff. And when I send them a text, it's like, hey, good morning. This is Corey Sawyers. Sorry to bother you, but, have you got time to come check my sprinkler system or, whatever.
Right.
If you pull up my text thread that I have with my wife or with my boys, I have a thread. It's just me and Garrett and Gordon. And then I've got a thread that it's my entire family. And, there's never a text that says, good morning, this is Corey. There's an ongoing, it's like you would think that this is a conversation that we've had, and it is, and it started like 14 years ago when we first got smartphones or whenever that was, and it's continued throughout all, the praying without ceasing. I think that's what, like a friend to a friend, that's what, am I just talking to God through the day? Now, I get, when we're in worship and that type of thing, it's a little bit different setting, and there's certain times that I do certain prayers and whatnot, but, just having an ongoing relationship, or the other side of that is like, how do we talk? One of my daughter-in-laws sent a text to us to see if we were going to Jackson, Tennessee, which is about an hour south of us the other day. She needed to pick up a present for my son. And I said, I wasn't planning on going, but I don't mind going. No, I hate to put you out. And I finally sent her a text. I'm like, listen, I said, you're part of my family now. And like it or not, you're stuck with all of us, and I would literally go to Timbuktu for you if I had to.
Yeah.
So you've got to get over this. I hate to put you out. You're not putting me out. I love you, and I want to do anything I can for you. Well, if I, as an imperfect father, can understand that, how much more does my heavenly Father, to your point about, well, we're bothering him, we joke about the are we there yet kind of stuff, but when you don't have the are we there yet in the back seat, you miss that are we there yet, and that's the way I think God wants us to just be ourselves and to grow in a real relationship with him.
Yeah. And in the same way, likewise, that is, building credibility with him, of course, which has to do with obedience and faithfulness and the friend to a friend concept being the real version. Because the reality is that, Paul writes in 1 Thessalonians 2 and 3 that he's establishing our hearts. He's trying to think of the other word that he's doing, examining our hearts. He uses I can't remember which one is in which chapter, but those are things within the context that is telling us that God is searching the heart, and that's the whole point here. And so that is, I've heard people say for a long time now that when we're at worship, we've got to give God our best.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that statement. But why would we give him anything different than on Sunday than we would any other day of the week? I mean, it's like the whole idea is good, but when we come here, now we ought to give our best. And I get why people use that, dress, and I think sometimes it's just backing for a...
Well, the question is, how do you define best?
Right. Yeah. And in general conversation, it's never defined.
Right.
And I know when we host the Eagle Camp here in Oklahoma, which is a preacher training camp for 10 to 14-year-olds, and we be sure to tell everybody on Friday, which is their Sunday when they're going to do their sermons, you wear your Sunday best is how we've worded it. And then in parentheses, if your Sunday best is a pressed, starched pair of jeans and a starched shirt, that's what it is. If your best is a good pair of shorts and a polo t-shirt, if that's the best you got, bring it. I got no problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
Because a person can give their heart all to God. A person can preach the full message of God. It don't matter what they're wearing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not suggesting, nor am I pushing, that we shouldn't dress nice to church or anything like that. So, those of you listening to this, don't think I'm trying to push an agenda here. I'm certainly not doing that. The whole thing is that what we're saying here is that the idea of best, giving your best, has to do with it doesn't have to do with clothing. It has to do with heart. And it needs to be defined. So giving my best has to do with giving my heart, being obedient to his will, because, there are so many of us that may start pushing that idea of giving our best, yet during the week, we're not even thinking about that. And that's a tragedy for our life. And so talk about untie from that thought process. Mm-hmm. You want to give your best to God? I'm all with you. I'll stand by you. I'll back you. I'll be there every step of the way. But don't you dare be a person who's going to only do it when you walk through the doors of the church building.
See if we can. I'm sorry.
I was going to say that is what destroys credibility.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't build it.
Yeah, and to that point, if we're building a real relationship with God like that, then as far as the horizontal credibility that we have with other people, then it's seen,
Mm-hmm.
and we've all known people like in the office or in the neighborhood or whatever, they're Mr. Grumpy Pants or whatever. And then the boss comes around or an elder comes around and suddenly their whole demeanor changes,
Oh, it's
and
so glad to see you.
Yeah. And it's, they suddenly turn into Pollyanna for some reason. I don't know. But, if I really have a relationship with the Lord as I should, then, people are, I'm still going to make mistakes. I'm still going to mess up. That's 1 John chapter 1. I'm striving for perfection, 1 John chapter 2, verse 1. But I'm going to make mistakes, but that's where the world and people will say, well, see, you have no credibility because you're telling me to do X and yet you're doing. But if I have a real relationship, then people will see that and they will know that. And then my Christianity is not just something that I do 4 hours a week it's not like my church clothes that I put on Sunday and then take
Mm-hmm.
off and don't put them on the rest of the week. Then it's real and it's genuine. It is like whenever we come to the auditorium, we're talking about life outside when we come to the auditorium and we find out someone is sick, then we say, well, let's pray for Brother Garrett.
Yeah.
Okay. That's another one. I call you Brother Garrett before I announce you're going to preach. But if we're in the duck blind, I don't say, Brother Garrett, hand me another sausage and biscuit, So that's a little bit pretentious as well. Or, we're going to pray for Brother Garrett, but then during the week, if we're at the coffee shop and you're like, yeah, we found out that, I'm gonna have to have my appendix out this week. Well, good luck with that. Why is my first reaction not, well, let's bow and let me pray with you right now for it?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of pretension if we're not careful, where it becomes a show that we do. One of my favorite movies, it's a chick flick, but I don't mind admitting to it, is Steel Magnolias. And I love Steel Magnolias.
My wife makes fun of me.
You never would have
because
guessed that, would you?
I have to say I like it too.
Well, one of the reasons I like it is it displays Southern small town lifestyle without making fun of them. I mean, but one of my favorite, and there's a bunch of great quotes in that movie, like "No one cries alone in my presence," which is real for me. We were talking about that earlier before we got on air, but one of my favorite comes from the dad, and Julia Roberts is actually quoting the dad, but she says, Dad always says an ounce of pretension is worth a pound of manure. And the playoff of an ounce of intention is worth a pound of cure. Our pretentiousness, all it does is cause problems, because you can fool the old saying, you can fool some of the people part of the time, part of the people some of the time, you can't fool all people. People are going to see through that. And, my children, I can tell them it's important for us to go to church. But if they never see me pick up a Bible, if they never see me pray, they're going to see through that. And we wonder why do our children leave the church? Well, maybe it's because they've seen it's not really who we are. Why can't I get my neighbor to be interested in coming to, well, they've seen me react in an ungodly way to every situation for the last year. And then suddenly I say, hey, we're having a gospel meeting with Brother Garrett Bernethy. Will you come? Well, no, I'm not coming to your church because I see how you act, But if we can, that's Jesus's point in that upper room in John, is that people will know you're my disciples if you love one another. Why? Because there's genuineness there. There's no pretension there. You can say that you love God, but if you don't love each other, how is anybody going to believe you're really following God that you say is a God of love? So it's not putting on airs. It's not having unnatural mannerisms. It's being the same person no matter who you're talking to, and avoiding that pretension. And when you do, then when I talk to you about your life or your marriage or a decision you're making, then that maybe even I'm saying, what Garrett said to me, that was kind of tough, hard to hear, but here's what I know. I know he's a man of God, and I know he loves me, and because he's proven that all these years.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just to say, I mean, somebody can see you maybe react in the wrong way. We're all human beings, and we realize that. And so there might be a time of, extreme emotion. There's a time of extreme pressure or something. And you may react in a wrong way. You may say the wrong thing. You may say the wrong thing, even though you had the right intentions, and you're trying to say it different. I mean, there's all kinds of scenarios that you can lay out there for that idea. But here's the deal, is that the only way that you can truly help people is if you realize your inconsistencies, your things, and you learn from them. I mean, there's a reason, 1 John chapter 1 is just one of those chapters that it's up there with Ephesians 2 and so many others, because John begins to write, and he tells you about walking in light and all that kind of stuff and confess your sins. But when you get down to 8, 9, and 10, I think it's verse 8 talks about if you say that you have no sin, or in verse 10, if you say you haven't sinned, and this is where, obviously have no more relationship with God. I hope that you guys will read those. But in verse 9, it says, but if you do confess your sin, only those who have a real, credible relationship, a faith-built relationship with God, are going to go to him. The beauty of 1 John is that 5, 6, 7, all through that section there, is that if you're living obedient life, if you're walking in the light, your sin is forgiven before you ever ask. But the person who is a friend to God, the person who has a real relationship with God, is going to him anyway and is going to him first. And that's the credible thing. So when I'm able to talk to people about certain things, a lot of times it's because I've either done it, I've been through it, and I've learned from that, hopefully, or I'm still learning from that. And so I know, Corey, you and I have some things that we've gone through and we've talked about that, you and I would be able to help somebody going through that, because we have, and we can sympathize. And that's the beauty of Jesus. He's been through all things. He sympathizes with our weaknesses because he understands. And that's, of course, what you can do as well. So, building credibility, loving people, forgiving people, loving God, being forgiven by God. These are all things that help you to build credibility, because there is no secret to transformation. There is no secret to living a discipled life. God has made all things known to us, and he has walked with us every step of the way, trying to, build this relationship with you. And now it's our turn to build a relationship with him. And so he wants the authentic you. And I think maybe that's what we bring or take out of this, the authentic you. That's what God wants. That's also what other people want. They want the authentic you. And there are people here in our congregation. There's one of the ladies here. She's a good friend of ours. And I always call her by her nickname. I never call her by her real name. It doesn't bother her. And I didn't start the nickname, but we all, my wife and her and several others, just became good friends. So that's how I know her. And that's what I call her. I'll call her that from the pulpit. I'll call her that to her. I mean, that's just who she is. And there are others like that. There are other people that I just, there's one guy that's here, and he picks on me and I pick on him, and nobody expects anything different. There's actually several people here actually, but so, just being the real authentic you, there's so much value in that. And that's what builds, I think, valuable relationships. And if you can build that credibility, I believe that it will help your teaching, it will help your preaching, it will help your evangelism, it will help your relationship with your wife, with your children, with, it's just what people want. And I think that's why, people have liked our show, is because we're just sitting here being us.
That's all I am.
That's what I think. At least hopefully they like it.
Yeah, and to go back to 1 John chapter 1, I think part of that is, to build that credibility, it's admitting that we're wrong, confessing and turning away from. And you can see that trajectory in people's lives. I would love, we've talked about this before, but I'd love my trajectory to be this smooth upward scale that's going, but mine looks more like a heartbeat. It's up and down, but hopefully overall it's trending upward.
Yeah.
But, it's admitting when we're wrong. It's asking for forgiveness when we're wrong with God and with each other, and when you do that, I think probably, not that I in any way have been a good daddy, but probably some of the best things that I've ever done as a daddy is when I've admitted to my boys, I handled that wrong and I'm sorry, but we have trouble with credibility when we want to act like we don't struggle, really, because we do. And just to be real and to be honest about that helps, and again, that's not an excuse to just keep doing it, but, being real, being genuine. Don't do the butter up kind of things, well, you sure look pretty today, or, whatever.
Yeah.
Trying to butter something. Just be real with people. And if you are, we have that expression. How many times you heard a preacher say, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care? You know what that saying's all about is credibility.
Yeah.
And the reason you've heard that saying all your life is because it's true.
It is.
So building relationships, you talked about the quote about the evangelism. Well, how do you grow the church? It's the same 3 steps: relationships.
Yeah.
But we've got to We got to get outside of the auditorium and outside of the foyer and get really into people's lives and show them we genuinely care about them.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do, then we build that. We learn about who we are.
Yeah.
And we learn that we have that credibility. So like whenever I'm telling an illustration about raising livestock, well, if you've been to my house and you've seen pictures of me with Belgian horses that we've raised, you're like, yeah, Corey knows what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
If I act like I can teach you about raising livestock when, I had a goldfish when I was 7 and it died and we had to flush it down the commode, well, I'm going to lose credibility there. So just don't, just be yourself. And it sounds like a Sesame Street episode, but that's really what God is telling us, that he doesn't expect me, thankfully, he doesn't expect me to be, as a preacher, Denny Petrillo or Garrett Bernethy or Tyler King. He expects me to be the best version of Corey that I can be.
Yeah.
But I don't have to be Dan Winkler or Paul or whoever it is. And we worry too much about how is things perceived rather than just being real sometimes.
Yeah. And, I don't think that it's wrong for us to, there are a lot of things that Denny does or Dan Owen does, or that Dan Winkler does, or that Corey Sawyers does, or, you name the preacher, as far as preaching goes from a personal standpoint. There are things that all of you guys do that I'm like, man, that would be really cool to incorporate into, my preaching. And you can take little things, or you can learn little things from each of those people, almost like a coach, right? I mean, a coach teaches you how to do things. They teach you their style of whatnot or whatever. And so there's nothing wrong with taking things that you learn from other people and then trying to apply those to your life. There's nothing wrong with that. But, and I think everybody gets caught up in this, in any type of work, secular or in ministry, of being like somebody. That's what we got to get away from, being like somebody. I can take things from them and apply them and then move forward and grow in that way. Because, I mean, let's face it, if I want to be Dan Winkler, I can try and I can try and I can try, and it will always fail. And it's not because I can use the same illustrations. I could copy everything that he says word for word. I could have the same pauses. I could grow my beard longer and my hair longer to try and look like him. But you know what will never happen? I'll never be him. And that's the same for anybody. Yeah. Because God's made us all different. And
we're all going to have mentors and people we look up to that influence us.
Yeah.
Like I think probably, like I listen to Dan Owen all the time. I love Dan. And one of the reasons I love Dan is because I think in some ways he may not like hearing this, but we have similar personalities, in that, like, I think of songs all the time. He thinks of songs all the time. So that's one of the reasons why I connect with him, is because there's and I'll catch myself if I'm listening back. I critique my own sermons and classes. If I'm listening, I'll think, I'm pretty sure I heard Dan explain it that way before. Yeah. Well, that's 2 Timothy 2:2. I think probably Timothy, there were people that heard Paul preach and then heard Timothy preach and say, he sounds kind of like Paul. Well, Paul trained him. But if I'm trying to be Dan Owen 2.0, then it's going to be, you remember when you were kids and you had the G.I. Joe, we had the little G.I. Joe action figures, and they would, fit in the little tank and everything. And then you would have like this great aunt that didn't know anything about anything, and your mom told her that you liked, and she got you, it was like Army Dan or whatever. And Army Dan didn't bend the same way G.I. Joe did, and you couldn't quite get him in the tank, or whatever. If I try to be Dan Owen, I'm going to be like Army Bill or whatever it is, Right. I'm never going to be G.I. Joe. I'm never going to be Dan Owen. But God doesn't want me to be. He wants me to be Corey 1.0.
Yeah. Well, the coolest people and the best teachers I have found don't care to be like anybody else.
Mm-mm.
When I listen to Dan take his classes, which I know exactly what you're talking about, he is he's hilarious. He cracks me up, and the knowledge that he has is just unbelievable. But he's doing what he loves, and he's teaching you what he's learned, and that's what he loves. And he's just being him. And so when he does, break out in song or give somebody a hard time or whatever it is, I sit back and I just kind of chuckle because I think it's funny. I don't know if everybody does that or what, but he's just him. And Dan's, we just list these names off. We keep bringing these names up because they've been in our conversation, but that's just
and in our lives.
Yeah, they're who they are. And because they're who they are, they're authentic. And because they're authentic, you have other guys that are looking up to them and wanting to grow from them. So, that really is a secret to being credible. Building credibility is being authentic, being the best version of yourself. I don't know who came up with that, but I think that is really what this is. And that really helps us to be better preachers, better ministers, better disciples, better fathers, better mothers, better husbands, better everything, a better child of God. It helps to better our worship. It helps to better our fellowship because you're being you. And when you first build credibility with God and you are in a personal relationship with Him, that's what is going to affect the rest of your relationships. And so, Corey, man, this has been a great season. I know that you've got a Christmas to get to. And I'm sure everybody else, people are still running around. But, man, brother, this has been just a great season. Really wish Tyler could have been with us. I know you do too. Yeah. Tyler, if you're listening to this, whenever, we're giving you a shout out. We love you, man. Get better. He's not on his deathbed, folks. He's just not feeling well. Let's make that clear. But man, sickness is just going around. But we certainly can't wait to have him back with us on season 2, episode 1, that will air in February. We will share that information as soon as it comes out. But Corey, any parting words as we end the season finale of the Untied Podcast, season 1?
You've heard the old preacher joke about the guy at the lectureship, and the other preacher asked, "Are you staying? You going home early? Or are you staying to the bitter end?" Well, this particular preacher he was asking was actually the last speaker of the lectureship, and he said, "Staying to the bitter end. I am the bitter end." So you and I are the bitter end of the season. So we'll just say, just everybody needs a little Jesus in their life.
There you go.
So get a little Jesus in your life and stay untied from the traditions and all of those kinds of things. Just be genuine in your life. Be men like Garrett, Bernethy, and Tyler King, and just love God and love others. And if Jesus made it as simple as you can be, love God and love others, and if you genuinely do that, we change the world.
You're going to be good. Just like the apostles, they turned the world upside down.
That's right.
We can do it too. Well, this is awesome. I'm extremely excited about the future of this podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on season 1. We do have more in store for you. Season 2 is coming. We certainly want to thank you for tuning in for our first season. We're grateful for you who have tuned in and listened to us, those who have tuned in on YouTube and, of course, Excel TV. We're praying that you have been blessed in your life, in your spiritual walk with the Lord, as you have tuned into our conversations and our discussions. We've had a number of different topics, and we just hope that they have helped you in some way. So February of 2025 will be season 2. Be sure to head over to our Facebook page if you haven't, Excel Still More. Like it and follow it, and because we do give a lot of updates on there. You can also go to our website, excelstillmore.net. You can subscribe to our monthly newsletter there, which we'll be getting out, and we'll have some dates and things for you there as we discuss and get ready for next season. We'll have more weekly ministry spotlights. We'll have new and updated changes. We'll have new topics that we're going to be discussing as we begin planning. And so please pray for us as we begin planning those things, and we will, of course, be praying for you. This season was just a lot of fun. We want to thank you for joining us, for listening in to us, for studying with us. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, follow the Untied Podcast that is brought to you by Excel Still More. We do want you to know that we're looking forward to having more conversations with you. We hope that you will help share this podcast, help it to grow. We do want to hear from you. Please send any comments or questions or anything. We'd love to hear from you. And so until next season, we thank you for tuning in to Season 1 of the Untied Podcast. We hope the Lord will continue to bless you in your walk, and we pray that you will stay untied.